We will have a quick lecture to talk about the JavaScript, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
In here, I'm just creating my main.js and then my styles.cs and then my uh, uh, index.html pages. And then in here, let me make these writings here a bit bigger. So I'll go to settings. I'll go here, change this to 30 so that they are as big as they can be. So let me make it a bit more bigger. So let me make it 35. So now they are huge. And in here, I can write the code I want. I'll start with the basic structure of a HTML page. So here I have the basic structure of a HTML page. It is important. You see, whenever we teach a coding class, we make it tiring. You know, it is important that creating a file, by now, you should be able to create a file, open a folder, put the file, know how to get the file opened, and so on and so forth. So in here, I'm going to write some piece of code. I'm going to just create a button. And then I'm going to give it a type of button. And then in here, I'm going to seal it off and say, click me. Now, obviously, when I go to my live server, or if I don't want to utilize my live server, I can rather go to the folder I have my work. I think it should be on my desktop. So on my desktop, I'll look for the folder I just created, which is Java or whatever, and then just open it there. So here's what I have. I have a button here for me to just click on the button, and the button says click me. Very easy, nothing complex. Now, in my main.js, I'm going to put some code over here. I'm going to create a function. And in here, I'm going to say display message. So display MSG. And then in here, I'm going to put the message I want to display, which is an alert telling the person you clicked the button, full stop. So now in this coding which I've typed here, I need to run this code. But before I can do that, there are some things I have to do. Last week we saw this. This week I'm just going over everything we did last week again. Whereby in this HTML page, at the bottom of the body, I want to link the JavaScript to this page. So I'll just type in main.js here. I'll do this. And then this piece of code here allows me to link the main.js code I have here to my HTML page. So if this code is not here, my JS code will not take effect on that page. Okay. Now, when I come here, I click on the button. I expect to see a pop-up here telling me I clicked on the button. There is no pop-up coming here. Now, in the main.js, I created a function. This is the function. This is the name of the function. This is the parameters to the function. Now, the name and the parameters together is what we call the signature of the function. So for me to use the function, I need to call on the signature. So in here, I'm going to say on click, it should be equal to the signature of the function. So technically, I'm telling the computer, when a person clicks, go and run the set of codes I have over here for me. So again, when I come in here, and then I click on this button here, now I can see you clicked the button popping up onto my screen for me to close it, for it to go away. So I can have the effects I want. When I right click and I go to view source code, so right now I'm in view source code, I can see that I have my button here, I have the type here, I have clicked here, and I'm seeing the function displayed message over here. This type of coding is not ideal. I am revealing all my functions and activities to a particular user. It is not ideal. And now a user knows that, okay, clicking on the button, this is what is triggered. So I have to go and look for where this is so that I can see how it works. When it comes to my main.java code, I can see it. I can see all my codes direct. So I have direct access to your innermost code, and means I can cause harm. I can cause, I can do something to hurt your organization or to hurt you as an individual. Hence, this way of coding is not ideal. This way of coding is not the best. The best way of coding is for me to hide the activity that will trigger this function. So in here, I'm going to remove this on click display thing here from there. Now, the moment I do that, again, when I come to my browser and then I refresh my screen and then I click on the button, nothing happens because I've removed the trigger. Now the computer doesn't know what to do. When I click on it, what should it do? It doesn't have any actions it should perform. Now here's where something marvelous comes in. I am going to tell the computer to work on displaying something from the JavaScript. So I'm going to tell the computer, first of all, I need to go and tell the computer that this thing in which I have in my HTML here is a button. How will I tell the computer that this is a button? First, I'll give this an ID. So I'll say ID is equal to let's say btn click. Okay. So this is the name of my button. An ID is a unique identifier of an element. So if I have to uniquely identify an element, I use an ID. For example, each person here has their own index number. If I want to uniquely identify each of you, I would use your ID. So in here, I'll go back to my main JavaScript code, use document dot. Now, last week, all the things we did, we used document dot get element by ID. Today, we would use that so that later on we'll change and use query selector and any of those things which are there. But today we'll continue using get element by ID. And here I'm going to tell the computer that the element in which I am getting by ID is called btn click. So now this piece of code here alone, just this piece of code, tells the computer, go here, look for the thing called btn click, and then go and bring it to me. So what is going to be brought back over here is the button. So now I have the button. Now, I'm going to tell the computer the following, that if you have the button, so let me just put a let over here and then say collected element so that you guys would know that here I've collected an element. Or this name, it sounds too long. So let me just write COL, and then here I would write element like this. That's fine. Now, here it means that whenever I say COLE element, I am talking about the element that has been gathered from here. And in this case, it is going to be the what? The button. So I have gone for the button from my main screen. That's also okay. Now, I'm going to tell the computer that sit down, listen. Let me repeat. Sit down, listen, wait, be patient and wait. When someone clicks on the button, then do some certain things. So that statement I just said, sit down, wait. When someone clicks on the button, do some certain things. That whole statement I just made, I'll bring a dot here and I would add an event listener. So this word here tells the computer that I am going to do something. The question that comes in is this: what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I am going to click. So when you take the button and when you click on the button, then there are some certain things you have to do. Now, here's the key word. Whenever in programming we say we want to do something, then that means we want to do a function. So in here, I would say function. I have my parameters, and then I have the body of the function. I don't need the name of the function. Why don't I need the name of the function? It's because I'm not going to call it. I am telling the computer that when I click on the button, go and do this. So I don't need a name to call it. If I was going to repeat the action, then I need a name. But in this case, I'm telling the computer quite simply, when you click on the button, do this. So in here, in the middle of this, in my body of the function, I'm going to put alert. I have clicked. Now, this piece of code here, again, when I come here, I go and click on this one, I save, everything is saved. And I come in here now and I click this, I can see I have clicked here. If someone wants to know my code and he comes and right clicks and then clicks on inspect, all he sees is button, ID clicked, but what is the button triggering? What is it opening? What is the button doing? He doesn't know because it is hidden from him. So last week, we learned how you can put the action directly in the HTML. But for this week, we are separating it so that all HTML code will be in HTML, all JavaScript code will be in JavaScript. If I need to trigger something, I can just trigger it in the JavaScript. I don't have to come to the HTML to say on click or on change or something. For example, if I want to change something, I can put it over here that on change. Let's write some code on that. But before then, are there any questions of what we have just learned right now? Anything you want clarification on? As always, I love my students so much because they never have questions. They always have know everything. So when it comes to the exam too, they'll do very well. God bless all my students. Now, let's come back to the HTML code again. In here, I'm going to make some changes. In here, I'm going to remove the button. I'm going to delete the code I have over here because I don't need it anymore. And then in here, I'm going to restructure my code. What am I going to do? I'm going to create a select. I'll give the ID of the select name. And then in here, I'm going to bring a slash. I'm going to bring this and that. And then I'm going to create an option. Okay, so the option has a close tag. And the first option I will do will have a value of nothing. And in here, I'll say select a name. Perfect. From there, I'll come here. Then I would say option. I'll put a value over here. Just to make my life easier for me, let me just do this. And then I'll do this. So in here, I'll put in Tommy. Over here, I'll put in Tommy. Then over here, I'll put in Rashid. Then over here, I'll put in the amazing Abigail. Then over here, I'll put in our favorite Brenda. So on my screen, when I go there, I expect to see a select. So this is what we call select. And then here are the options. So option 1, option 2, option 3. So this is how I create a drop down. Select. Very, very simple. I've just created a select. Now, any time in which I tick on any of these things here, so if I choose this or I choose that or I choose this, it should tell me that I have selected Tommy or Rashid or whoever in which I have selected. That's quite simple. So now, in here, I'm going to create a p tag. So I've created a p tag. And then in my p tag, I'm going to give it an ID called show result. And then in here, I'm going to put in the selected name will appear here. Quite simple. So again, when I go to my screen to check what I have over there, I would see the selected name will appear here. Just so that I can make this thing look a bit nice, I would say style, color, and then in here, I would say give me aquamarine. So again, I'll come here and then aquamarine. If we do it aquamarine, we won't see anything. So let's change it to crimson red. Yes. So now when I come back here, oh, crimson red is over here. Just to make sure the thing is bolded, I would use the B tag. So over here, I have the B tag. And then in here, I can put in what I am doing. So here, I'll put in this. So now when I come in here, I'll see that this is bolded and it is written, you can appear here. Now, what we have over here is what we call an inline CSS. So if I want to write my CSS in the HTML tag, I would use the style attribute and then I'll write my CSS in there. So this is inline CSS. You can see how I know the tags. So when I want to do something, I imagine it, I ask myself, what tag will allow me to do what I want to do? Then I just execute. That is why the first few videos were very important. Knowing the HTML tags, knowing the P tag, knowing the string tag, knowing the BR tag, knowing the various elements that are there that we can execute. so that we can execute them and use them to do what we have to do. Give me 1 second, I am coming. Sorry about that. So now, over here, I have my code. But I said that when I make a change, I expect the name should appear over here. So in here, I'm going to write my code. I'm going to say document dot get element by ID. And the element in which I want you to go and get is called or has the ID called what? Name. So in here, I'll put in what? Name. Now over here, I'm going to continue this statement and bring a dot and say add event listener and tell the computer that the event I want you to listen to. So you can see that over here, I have all the events I can do, but the event I want is unchanged. So whenever the thing changes, then go and do the actions in which I have over here. Remember, the actions you have are always going to be kept in a function. So I'm writing the actions I want to be performed in a function. I want you to go to make life a bit easier for me. Let me put this in a variable. So I'll just say let change, let value change be equal to this. Then over here, I'll just come and put value change over here. Okay, great. So that in here, I can say the following. I can say let name be equal to value change dot value property. So remember that when you have a form element, the things you see here are the value property. You can see that when I was writing the code here, I said option value. The Tommy that is being displayed on your screen is this. But when you choose Tommy, what is selected is the Tommy I have over here in value. So I'm telling the computer with this code, go and get the button and get the value property at that point in time. And then when you get the value property, go back to the document, go and look for an element in which we are calling show result. Now, when you get show result, go and look for its inner HTML and put the thing we have in there. So we're going to put this in there like this. So let's see if this code will work. Let's see if it will do what we are telling it to do. When I go to the screen, I click here, I refresh the screen, I click here, I click Tommy, and guess what comes here? Tommy. I can go further with this. But here, it demonstrates. You see, we make coding a bit more difficult than it should be. When you're a beginner, start with the basics. How do I collect information? First of all, how do I display information? When I display, how do I collect? Then once I learn how to collect, how do I manipulate to get what I want? how do I manipulate the information so that what I want is to give the desired effect of what I want? Please give me 1 second. How do I get the desired effects in which I am looking for? And a lot of you would think this is overwhelming. And the way I am doing it, you'd realize I'm not looking on any book. This is not a question in which I prepared before coming. We are all doing it here together. I'm not getting any error. And I'm not getting any error because I have repeated over so much that I know where each and everything is supposed to be. I know I have to learn to reduce my spelling mistakes. I know I have to continue using the keyboard to know how to type so that I don't have to think of typing. I don't have to think of where is A, where is B. I already know where those things are. So now I'm only thinking of how do I get to where I want to get to? What do I want to do and how do I get there? What do I manipulate to get to where I want? So, for example, in here, I can say that if the name is equal to Tommy, then I would put in a let over here and call it str and call it nothing. Now say if the name is equal to Tommy, then str is equal to comma, he is an actor in power. Else, if the name, so let me cheat a bit and copy this. If the name is equal to, and what's the next name? I think it is Rashid. I'll put here, he is the best looking guy in class. Exclamation mark. If I do full stop, it means, by exclamation mark, it means Rashid is the best looking guy. Over here, if I bring the else again and I bring the if and I go and look for the name Abigail, I can say that if the name is equal to Abigail, then she can code. Oh my God. I bring an exclamation mark. Now, if the name of the person is equal to Brenda, she is just the best. Exclamation mark. Now, over here, I'm going to bring a plus over here and bring the str over here. So now, in this code, when I click here and I refresh the screen again, it says the name you selected will appear here. I go and I select Brenda, and it just tells me that Brenda, where is the other one? So it means I have an error. So let me go and see what is going on. So let me click back in here. str, the name should be Tommy or that or that or that. I have my plus str working. Everything looks good here. So I'll go back to my page. I'll right click. I'll go to inspect. I'll go to console. Pardon? I'll go to console. In console, I don't seem to have any error there. Okay, so Tommy, he is an actor in power. Rashid, he is the best looking guy in class. Abigail, she can code, oh my God. And then I have Brenda. Hey, Brenda, the ending bow. Brenda, she's not the best at that.
So the spelling
The
of
spelling
Brenda.
is wrong. Oh my God, it's true. Okay. Brenda, forgive me before you come and attack me. So over here, when I go back, Brenda, she is the best in the world. So you see, manipulation of what you want, manipulation of the data, getting the result in which you are looking for. It's not about you remembering everything. You can't remember everything because the problems in this world are plenty. Each problem has its own solution. I can give you the same. That is why whenever I give you the same word and all of you bring the same answer, it doesn't make any sense. Because each person will understand it his own way and do it his own way. This here is how we would be writing our code going forward. We would make sure the HTML code is in the HTML, the JavaScript code is in the JavaScript, the CSS code is in the CSS. And then we would see how we would manipulate the information to get the desired effects we'll be looking for. Are there any questions here before we go on to the next thing we have to do? Just so that I don't clean this, let me go back in here. I think this is the folder I am doing. Oh, I created a folder in downloads. Okay, so that's no problem. So let me create a zip. And then I would send the zipped folder I created to you guys in your class group right now. So in your class group, I have this, send, and then where is it again? The other group, where are they? Yeah. I have this. So this is the code for this is the code for what I just did right now, so that I can clean it. So I'm cleaning it off. And then we are going to do something else. Now, as I said, we're supposed to do an entire website today in class, but we are not going to do that because we are not in class. So what we are going to do rather is focus on how we can do validation of a form. If I have a form, how will I do validation? So let me give you an example of what I am saying. So over here, I have a form. Over here, I have another form. And over here, I have another form. Great. I have another form. So this form here, I gave it CSS for it to look like this, or I can take it to the next level and then make it look like this. All of them are the same information. For example, here you have what? First name, middle name, last name, course. Over here to you have first name, middle name, last name, course. Over here to you have first name, middle name, last name, course. The same thing. There is no difference. I am going to write the code for them. And then we would see how we would design it in the various ways in which we want to design it. How will I write the code here? So first I'll start with my index page. I need to have my basic structure of a HTML page. So I'll just type HTML semicolon 5, and then I'll press this. Please note that the basic structure of the HTML page is not the semicolon 5. Somebody will go and write that in the exam. That was the basic structure of the HTML page. You see someone writing HTML semicolon 5. That is not the basic structure. The basic structure is what you see over here. And I don't want to spend time typing this, so I just use the semicolon 5 to get this as a shortcut. Now, once I have this, I need to start typing in the structure of my page and how I want my page to look like. So what's going to be the structure of my page? First of all, I need to create a div. So here I have a div, and I'm going to call my div ID class container. Great. In here, I'm going to have a H2, and I'm going to call this registration page. Now, I'm going to create another div, and this div I'm going to call class error hyphen panel. Now, someone would ask, why is it that we are giving some things an ID? Why are we giving some things a class? In one of the lectures, I knew I said this, but it's fine. Let's go over it again. An ID is a unique identifier for an individual. A class is a unique identifier for a group. So if I have a group of people, I would use the word class. For example, in your classroom, all of you have your own IDs, but together you are all BIC and you are all doing diploma something something or degree something something or something something. So together, that is the group name you have, but individually, you all have your IDs. So in here again, this is the class name for a group of people. And I'm also going to have an ID here in which I'm going to call this ID error panel. So if I have an error, I'll display it in the error panel. So all my errors will be displayed with this. Now, what does that mean? Let's come back here to the designing which I was showing you. Over here, when someone comes and clicks on submit, he didn't fill anything. So I'm supposed to tell him, first name must contain letters. Last name must contain letters. Course must be selected. Gender must be selected. The phone number must have 9 digits. The address must be that and that must be that. You saw how the thing popped up. You saw how we did the Brenda and stuff. That's the same way in which it popped up over here. So that is the control for that. If I come here and I click on this, you can see it popping up here again too. So this pop-up, what controls this pop-up is what I have typed over here as my error panel. So I'm going to use this to control all the error messages that I'll be displaying to the user at the end of the day. I am doing a form, so I have to have my form tag. And in here, I'll have an ID calling it registration form. After that, I'll close my form tag and I can type in. Now, the first thing in which I have on my form is the first name. So I have a label. Here I have a label. I'm going to create the label for first name. And then in here, I'll put in what? First name, so that the person knows he's typing the first name. In here, I have to have an input, type, text, ID, first name. The name property is also first name. and then I would close this off. Now, this piece of code here, when I go to my screen, so over here, I'm on my screen. I refresh my page. I would see the H2 I did for first name. Over here, I have this and that. Of course, I did a div for the error. So there is no error being shown. The error is not going to show over there because I haven't put anything in the error. And a div is just a container. Yes, Brenda.
Sir, please, why did you use the label instead of input type?
Why did I use the label instead of input type?
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, so Brenda, this thing here is the label. Okay, this thing here is the label, and then this thing here is the input type. So last week, what we did, we didn't bring any label over there. We just used the placeholder to put the information in. But for this week, you would see first name, then you see a box here so that someone can type whatever he has to type over there. I think that is nicer this way. Now, I need these two things so that I can tell the individual. So I'll just click here, click here, click here, and click here at the same time and delete them. Let me delete this too. So everybody has, some people have a middle name, some people do not. But if you do, then in here we'll put what? Before I do that, let me do this. Let me just copy this one down so that I don't have to retype this all over again. And then here, I can just click in here, click here, click here, and then I'll type middle name. Yes. Then I can click here. And then over here, I'll click here, click here, click here, and click here. And then I'll have last name. So I'm done with that. So now when I go to my screen and I refresh, I should see first name, middle name, last name. Of course, if I want them to appear one under the other, it means that in here, I have to put a word there, a break, so that let me make it 2 breaks. And then after this one, I'll put a break there too. But in here, I'll have that appearing like this. Now, after that, I'll create a select. So I need a label for my select. So here I have a label. Sorry, a label. Then here I'm going to call my label course. And then the course is going to be a select. So here I have select ID is equal to course. And then the name would be course. And then I'll close this off. Then I'll put the options. So option, value. I'll make the first one empty so that when someone doesn't choose anything, it will tell me that he hasn't chosen anything. So here would be select course. Then in here, the next one, I'll put the various courses that the person is doing over there. So here, I'll put them here like this. I'll click it here. I'll refresh. I can see this. If I want this one to come to the bottom, I'll just go and put a break after this so that it will also appear in line. It also appear in line like this. again, you can see how what I want to do, I am doing it. I want to do this, so I'm going to pick it from here. I want to do this, so I know what each element is. You see, it's not about chewing it in your head. If you do that, you realize when something changes, when you have a different scenario, when you have a different thing to do for someone, you are stuck. You don't learn it like that. The coding is not about, I have to learn it this way. No. The more you do, the easier it becomes. The more practice you do, the easier it becomes, the better you become. After this, I want to do a radio button. So I'll create a div so that all my radio buttons will be grouped as one. And then in here, I'll give it a class name called gender hyphen options. Now in here, I'll have my input. The type of input is going to be radio. And the ID is going to be male. Yes. Then in here, the name property is going to be gender. And then the value property, yes, blessing.
So please, is it necessary to add the options to the gender? Like for the class name, can you just give it any name that you want, or it's supposed to be?
Now, if I give it the name gender, okay, it means that
Yes.
here I have gender, and then over here I have gender too. So the computer will get confused. Which gender am I talking about? Do you understand? So to make it
Okay.
easier for me, I'll make this our gender option so that when I say gender options, I know that this is what I am targeting. The names don't conflict. Is that okay? Now, if you want to call this one gender and call this one gender something, then you can do that.
Okay.
Now, the value of this is going to be what? Male. So that when I go to my screen, I should see a button here. And it means that every time I check this button, any time in which I click on this button like this, it means that I have clicked on what? Male. It means that what will be saved is going to be the value property, which is going to be male. After that, I'll bring a label. And you can see that with radio buttons, the label comes after the thing. So here I'm going to have the label for male. Oh, sorry. Over here, it's supposed to be male. So that the 4 will be for male. The label for male. Please give me 1 second. I'm coming, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry. So now I've done for male. Obviously, I have to do for what? Female. So over here, I'll just change this ones to female. Hey, this one too to female. And of course, the world we live in right now, we don't have just males, females. We have male, female, and what? Other. So I have to do for other too. And those of you who say, yeah, I would do, yeah, say, Open USA contractor. Obey it. Back here, I'll refresh the screen again. And you can see that I have male, female order all grouped together because I put them in a div. And it means that anytime I check this, I know that what will be saved will be male. When I check this, what will be saved will be female. And when I check this one, what will be saved would be what? Order. So everything in which I have to do is being done correctly and it's being saved correctly for me. With that in mind, I'll move to the next thing, which is phone number. So in here, I'll just click inside the form. So I'm still in the form, right? I need a label. So I have label, label. And then the label is for phone. And then the name of it is going to be phone. Then in here, I'm going to have a div. And then I'm going to have a span. A span is a div, but it is a div on a line. So if I have to create a container on a line, then I use a span. But if I have to use a container that will be more than one line, then I would use a div. So a span, then in here, I would say input. The type of input is a text. And then the ID is going to be phone. The name property is going to be phone. And then in here, I'm going to put a slash and a close over here. After that, the next thing I have to do is an address. So in here, I'm going to do an address. So label for, and by the way, you can see that I am using a lot of form elements. The only reason why I'm going through the pain of typing all of these things is so that you guys can see the different form elements so that when you have to try something, you would know which form element to use and which form element you can pick and so on and so forth. Then in here, I'll put in input. The type of input is email. The ID is email. The name property is going to be email. And then I'll bring a slash and a close. Oh, before the email address, I have to do an address. So let me do the address. So label, address. So for address, close here, address. Then in here, I'm going to have a text area with the ID being address, the name being address, and then the row count being equal to 5. And then I'll close off the text area. So when I come to the screen, I would see that I have a place someone can type something with 5 rows here, big enough for the person to type. Again, I will come to the top, select this and this, come here, put over here. I think this will be fine, but we need one here and we need one here, so that we have a break, so that everything would appear horizontally like this. After email, then we need password and confirm password. So I need password and confirm what? Password. So where is that? That's password and confirmation of password. Then I need the button. So here I'm going to say btn button. The type of button is going to be submit. Not button. And here we are going to say class submit hyphen BTN. Then in here we would say register. So that the person knows he's clicking on the registration button. For those of you who are wondering, the types of button, there are plenty. Over here, you can see that I can bring this one here again. And here, let me just say, call it reset, okay? So let me call this button reset. I'll delete it, but let me just create a reset button. And then in here, the type of button is going to be reset. Now, if I, on my form, and I fill this side with information, so I fill it with information, are we okay? I fill it, and I click the reset, everything will be resetted back to default. So that is the job of the button type reset. If I use submit, it means that when I click it, it would go and invoke the form tag I have, and that is what I want. If it is just a normal button, it means that you will now have to write the CSS to do the actions. So I don't want to write the CSS to do the, the JavaScript to do the actions. So I am using it as a what? Submit. Ladies and gentlemen, adding the BRs over here so that I'll have spaces between them too. And then I'll have a space between my button. When I come in here, you can see I've just created a registration form that has all the elements in which I want. First name, last name, course. You can select the course. You can choose your gender. You have a place to type your phone. You know you're typing +233 first. So here you just come and continue with your phone number. You have address. You have email. You have all the things in which you want to do over here. Are there any questions, please?
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, please, I noticed that while we were writing the codes for filling the forms, some people really like to go the extreme, or some people have really long names. Does it mean if you've written first name, you have to write another line of code that might expand the box for their names?
Like, let's say someone is typing J. John like this.
Yes.
You see that as I keep on typing, it keeps on going.
Okay.
So it will just keep on going.
Okay, so you don't need a new line of code to do anything.
No. So if
Okay,
that space can take as many things as you want.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other question, please? Okay. That means my students understand. I always say, you guys are the best students ever, having no questions or anything. Oh my God. Oh my God. God bless you guys. Now, in here, I want to write the JavaScript code that will allow me to authenticate this form. That will allow me to check if a user is doing the right thing on my form or the wrong thing on my form. So I'll go to or before then, let us design the form. How we design the form, how we make the form look like how we want it to look like. Let's design the form. So I'll go to my CSS. In here, I'll start with the body. I'll say the body of my work. But before then, since I'm going to start it with CSS, I don't need the break for the spacing. So I'll use find to remove all the breaks. So now I don't have it there anymore. Now let's go to the CSS. I need the body. So here I have the body, okay? And then in here, I'm going to say that the body of my entire work should have a background color of hashtag 87 CEEB. Yeah. And then the font family that it should be using should be Arial, that, and sans serif. Perfect. So now, when I go to my screen and I refresh, this is what I have. But the code is still the same. The background color didn't change. Nothing worked. Why didn't it work? Because in my HTML, I haven't told the computer that I am using a CSS that is coming from that CSS page. So in here again, I need to click here. I need to click on this one. I need to type linked. I need to type href. And then I have to put in here that I am picking my code from styles dot what? CSS. In here again, I'll put rel, and then I'll say I'm using what? Style sheet. And then I can bring the slash and close. Now, when I come to my code, I can see that everything is what? Blue. We leave errors in so that you would see the errors. So if something is not happening, then you know where to go. Is the connection there? Have I typed the right thing? If I check the connection is there, then I know what to do, so on and so forth. Judith, what's up? Judith, you have your hands up, or it's a mistake? Judith, can you hear me? I think Judith's hand is a mistake. Oh. Okay. So now everything is blue. Now let's come in here. And then I'm going to type. Now, if I bring a dot, what am I talking about? Am I talking about an ID or a class? If I bring a dot, then what I'm referring to is a what? Class. So I'm saying that the width of my container should be 600 pixels. And then my container should have a background color of white, which is F3, 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 a bit of eggshell white, faded a bit, but a bit of eggshell white. So here, when I go back to my code, I'll see that I have the grayish eggshell whitish over there. And then I have my container being 600 pixels. So this is 600. Yes. Now I want to tell the computer that the padding of it should be 20 pixels. Now, what does the padding of it mean? It means that the distance between it and the things in it should be 20 pixels. So you can see that there is a 20 pixel gap here, 20 pixel gap here, 20 pixel gap here. Previously, when the padding was not there, so the padding was not there, I can see that everything was touching the edges. You see, they're all touching the edges. All the edges were being touched. But the moment the padding comes into play, the edges will not be what? Touched anymore. I want my margin should be 0. That means the top should not have any margin, and the rest of it should be what? Auto. So over here, I'll have a distance of 0 at the top, but here should be auto, here should be auto, here should be auto. So no matter what your screen is, if I'm saying that the distance at the top should be 0, but left, right, and bottom should be equal, technically I am putting you in the center. So you can see that everything has moved to the what? Center. In here, I'm going to say the border radius should be 8 pixels. The moment I do this, you can see that the square in which I had over here, the edges over here. So you can see the edge here, the edge over here has been rounded. Perfect. And then I'm going to say box shadow 0, 0, 10 pixels, and then RGBA, that is red, green, blue, ultra. I have a color of 0, 0, 0. And then my ultra is going to be 0.1. So with this, I have a nice shadow at the background so that it feels like the thing is popping up of the screen, but it is not popping up from the screen. Yeah, iPhone. What is your question?
So please, can you go back to the code?
I'm at the code.
Yeah. So sir, please, the box shadow. Why is it? Couldn't we have made it just instead?
Couldn't you have done what?
I'm saying that if we had made it like just the 10 pixels instead of bringing the 00s in front, would it have worked the same way?
Okay, so here you are saying the box shadow, this first 0 is for the horizontal axis. This second 0 is for the is for the vertical axis.
Okay.
This 10 pixels is for the blur. So this is the amount of blurriness in which you want.
Oh,
Then over here, you have the color you want to apply. So when I come in here, when we look at the side here, we are saying the dimensions top down should be 0. So that dimension will be taken care of. Then the blurriness should be 10 pixels, the spread of the blurriness. So you can see that we can see, if you are very observant, you can see a bit of a shade between the background and this of 10 pixels. If we make it deeper, let's see, let's make it 100 and then save. Because it has become a bit, it's not negligible anymore. So it looks normal. But the 10 pixels is enough for it to offset it, for us to have a bit of a shade between the background and that, for it to be like there's a backdrop. So each of the things over there has a purpose. The horizontal, vertical, blur, and then the color you want to apply for the shadow. Yes, bless it.
so please, you just answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Now, we are done with the box shadow. Of the container. Now let's attack the labels. So we are saying that all the labels should display as a box. See, in this world, the best thing that could happen to us in this world is when they discovered that they can ship items in containers in boxes. Because the shipping containers are in boxes, they are easy to stack up. Hence, you can save space on the ship, and you know how much space you can take on a ship. Back in the day, they were not. If any of you like watching documentaries, you can watch documentaries on shipping and how they used to ship back in the day. They just put the items in anything like a sack, then they'll put it on top of the on the ship. the items get messy, rain goes on them, you don't know who belongs to who. Some of your items will go to another person. So the person who discovered the shipping container is one of the most marvelous inventors in this world. In this case, we bring it here, and when I want to stack things up and I want to put things on my page, the best way in which I can do that is by making it appear as a box. Once it appears as a box, in this case, a block, stacking it up and controlling it becomes very easy. So in here, when I say that the label should appear as a block, it means that on that line, it should only be the label. Everything else should go to the next line. The moment I do that, you can see that the thing which was appearing haphazardly, let me remove what we just did for the label here. So it's not there anymore. So when I come here, you can see that everything is scattered here. When I tell the label to appear as a block, it means that everything is going to be stacked up. Hence, when I come back here, I have them all stacking up. When I go back here, I can say my margin from the bottom, that is the bottom of the label, should be 5 pixels deep. When I come back here and I click here, I can see that because of that, there is a distance between the label and then what the person will what? Type. Again, a lot of you, whenever you talk to people who do IT, they'll tell you, I like front end and back end. And they assume that because you said you like front end, there is no thinking, there is no math, there is no, like it's easy. It's not. Design is one of the hardest things you have to do because there's a lot of technicalities in which you have to put into play to get the desired result you are looking for. And I'm going to say that the font weight, that is what you call the boldness or whatever, should be what? Bold. So that over here, I can see that my labels are all boldened and deep. Now I'm going to tell the computer that if you have an input and the input has a type called text, or, so I bring the comma, you have an input and the input has a type called email. Or you have an input and the input has a type called password. Or you have a text area. Or you have a select. Then apply all of these rules to it. So I am targeting each and every single one of these things. And the reason why I didn't just do input is because over here we have radio buttons also being input. So if I do input, it will affect it too. So I have to be specific on what I am targeting, what I want to achieve. So in here, I would say the width is 100%. The padding is 8 pixels. Now, let's go back to the width should be 100%. If I'm saying the width should be 100%, it means it should be 100% of the container that it is containing. So if I come in here again, I click here, I'll see that the length of this input has taken up all the space over here because I'm telling the computer, stretch it so that it is 100% of the viewing area. So, sorry, 100% of your container. Again, if I don't want it to be 100%, I could make it 80. So let's say I do it 80. When I come in here again and I refresh, I'll see that it just covered up to here and then it left this part off. It doesn't look quite nice. So I'll maintain the what? 100. I would say the padding should be 8 pixels. Now, what that does is that I'm saying that the input I have over here So you can see that the buttons here have grown bigger because I'm saying that when I type in here, there should be 8 pixels to the top, 8 pixels to the left, and 8 pixels to the what? Bottom. I can continue. Over here, I can say, let me say 95. So that when I do the 8 pixels, it will not overflow. You see, it didn't overflow to the edge here, and everything will be inside and then well taken care of. I can say that my margin, so outside at the bottom should be 20 pixels. So let's come back here. I'll see that the distance between each and every single item has now grown. So this is what I'm saying. This is the distance between the box here and the course, the box here and the lesson, the box here and then this one should be 20 pixels so that I can see everything in which I'm doing pop. And look, our application is taking, the shape of it is taking, is looking nice. That is looking like a professional thing in which we are doing. I also wanted the border, so the box that has the things we'll be typing in should be 1 pixel thick, solid, and should be gray. That is CCC. I also wanted to have a border radius of 4 pixels. So when I'm here again, I'll see that it is rounded, the edges are all rounded, and then they look nice. And it's not all that thick, so that when I click in, the black thing there would make it pop. I also want my box sizing to be border box. So now when I come back here, I check everything, and everything looks great. Perfect. Let's come back here. I now want to target .gender hyphen option. That means that what I'm targeting is a what? A class. And I'm saying that the display of it should be what? Flex. Now, the moment I do this, it means that I'm telling the computer, display everything in the horizontal direction. First, they were all vertical. So everything in it will be displayed in the horizontal direction. I'll tell the computer that all the items in it should be aligned in the center. So again, when I come here, I'll see that all my items will be aligned in the what? Center. I want there to be a gap between each of the items of 10 what? Pixels. And then I want the margin bottom should be what? 20 pixels. Once I do that, I'll see the spaces between them. There's a space between this, and this looks very what? Nice. Over here, I think I've made a mistake. So let me go and make a correction. I have to click here. I have to click here, click on the label, and then at the top here, I'll put in a label for the gender. So here I would say gender. And then in here, I'll put in what? Gender. So that when I click over here, I would see gender, then we know that this one is the gender the person is what? Picking. Is that okay? Now in here again, I want to focus on the submit button. So now I'm going to do the CSS for the submit button. So dot submit. Hyphen button. I want the width of my button to be 100 pixels. 100%. So it means to take the width of the container that it is in. I want the padding of it to be 10 pixels. I want the background color to be hashtag 4CAF50, that is green or deep green. And then I want the writings in it to have a color of white. I want the border of it should be none. I want the border radius to be 4 pixels. And then whenever you put a cursor on it, I want it to act like a pointer. So when I come in here, I come here, I scroll to the bottom, you can see that it is green. When I put the cursor on it, it changes to a pointer. I have full control over that. Now over here, I made this 95, so it doesn't look even. So here, instead of me choosing 100, I'll remove this and make it what? 95, so that this is even with the rest of the things which are on my screen, so that everything looks in line. Order is very important. Things looking in line. You don't design and one thing is here and one thing is on the other side. Everything you do must be intentional. There must not be a lot of colors on your screen. You have blue, green, yellow, indigo. No, everything must be intentional. Everything you do has to have a scheme. Everything that has to look alike looks alike. All your buttons look alike. All your these things look alike. I'm going to tell the computer that after I've done the submit button here, go for the submit button, semicolon, hover. For those who are wondering, hovering means that when I put my cursor on top of the thing. So I'm going to say, when you put your cursor on top of it, I want the background color to be a deeper shade of what we have. So I want hashtag 45A09. And then when I come in here, when I put the cursor on it, you can see that it just goes deeper. And when I take it off, it goes away. So that it gives the person a feel that, oh, he's clicking or he's there or he's trying to interact with what you are doing. You know, that small animation, it gives a marvelous effect. I'm going to bring .error panel, error hyphen panel. And then in here, I'm going to say the color of it should be red. The border of it should be 1 pixel thick, solid, and red. I want the padding of it to be 10 pixels. And then I want it to have a margin from the bottom of 15 pixels. And then it should not display so that when I have an error before it will display. So if I don't bring this statement display here, when I go in here, I will see at the top me having the error message over there. Of course, there's nothing in, so nothing will show, but the error message will be there. So this display will prevent it from displaying. So I want it to display a particular error in which I have. Ladies and gentlemen, here I have designed my application. And this is what it looks like. Everything in line, everything in order. This is where I want you to be at. This is how I want your work to look like. Professional. I want your work to look like this. Professionally done, correctly done. Commander, I'll call you back in a few minutes, okay? Professionally done, correctly done. When we meet again, it's time for us to close. I have the next class, unfortunately or unfortunately. But when we meet again, we would write the code that would make this work. You can see from here that this is the error messages which will appear here. So if someone comes, for example, over here, let's say I fill this part, right? And I click on submit, you can see that over here, the message, I click on submit, I can see that the message is gone. If I click something in the last name and I click here, the message is what? Gone. If I go and select a course, the message is what? Gone. How do we let the message go? Make sure the person types, make sure the password, he types 6 characters, he makes it, those kind of things. How do we do all of those things? We will treat that when we appear together next week. You need to practice. You need to pick topics of yourself. I would send you some, but it's not always I who has to send you topics. In your day-to-day, design a login form for a trip, design a login form for a choir, design a login form for something. Yes. Marilyn,
Sir,
yes.
please, how do you make the middle name optional?
How did I make the middle name
How
optional?
do you make the middle? Yeah.
We will treat that when we appear next week. But how I did that was I didn't give it any rules. I didn't write any code for it because I know that there are some people who do not have middle names. So if I make the middle name a required field, it means that the people who do not have a middle name, they can't use my form. It means that everybody has to have a middle name. But there are some people there who do not have a middle name. They just have 2 names. So what would they do? So in such a scenario, we will not give the middle name any rules. We'll leave it open so that if you leave it open like this, it can work. If, for example, here, the moment I remove the last name and I go and click on submit, it will tell me last name must be what? Entered. Things like that. The last name must be entered. If I remove the first name, it will tell me first name must be what? Entered. But for middle name, it is not optional. It is not required. So I will not even write the code for that. So things like that, in which we will have to think of things like that. When do we write code? Do I leave this one open? Things like that. We will do all of that next week. But we'll focus on if I type in here, then something should happen. Those things we'll focus on it next week when we appear. Is that okay?
Okay. Yes, sir.
It is very important you practice. I can't state that even more. It is not, don't make it, I have to force you to practice, or I have to give you a test, or there is a test and then you are copying, or you put your laptop down when it is exam time before you go and pick it up, those kind of things. That is not what this course is about. That is not what you should be about. Do something, do a form. If it's not nice, it's not nice. Why is it not nice? That is what is important. How do I make it better? The more you do, the better you become, the better opportunities you open for yourself. It's very important. I don't know how to inspire you more, or say it more, or focus you more. It's not about exam. It's not about, if you can do all of these things, the exam, you can do it. There's hands down. But the most important thing is you, the computer, you are writing the code, you are getting an error. Why are you getting an error? You figure it out. That is what is important. Anyway, as I said, advice is given, but it is upon an individual to take. So I hope you all take it. Enjoy the rest of your day, I guess. If you have another class, good luck.